What if optimizing your metabolism was the key to unlocking your best life? Welcome to the Life Possible podcast, where we bring you cutting-edge insights, real-life transformations, and powerful strategies to help you win the fight against obesity and metabolic disease. Join host Dr. John Barnes as he explores the science and stories of transformational metabolic health, because when you fuel your body right, you unlock your greatest potential. From leading experts in nutrition and wellness to inspiring success stories, this is your go-to resource for education, motivation, and empowerment on your journey to a healthier, more vibrant life. Your best life isn't just possible, it's within reach. Let's make it happen together. Here's your host, Dr. John Barnes.
Hey, I'm back. We are back with an amazing show today. I am so excited for our guest. We're going worldwide today. Real quick, briefly, for those who are new to the Life Possible podcast, my name is Dr. John Barnes. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this show, or the reason that I do this show, there's no easy way to put this, but 10 years ago, I found myself fat, sick, and depressed. And what's worse is I didn't see a way out of it, and I had given up. I truly believe at that point in my life that God brought me the Ideal Protein Protocol as the answer to so many of my prayers, both personally and professionally. And that picture on the right-hand side shows a totally transformed metabolic health, metabolic fitness, and that's me living a life that I like to refer to as life possible, a life that is healthy, vibrant, and alive. And so I'm doing this show in an effort to try to inspire as many people to take that journey there on their own, explore low carb, ketogenic nutrition, and how its transformational benefits can power your own life possible. And so what we're doing today is we're bringing you yet one more expert in this field. And I'm so excited to bring you Martin Gillespie. Martin Gillespie is a keynote speaker, podcast host, author, and advocate for metabolic well-being around the world. With over 25 years of global corporate experience, Martin Gillespie is a pioneering voice in metabolic well-being, nutritional resilience, and in corporate health leadership. Drawing from his own personal experiences as not just a cancer survivor, but a cancer thriver and a relentless researcher, Martin bridges the gap between cutting-edge science and practical lifestyle transformation. Martin's approach combines science-backed education, real-world insight, and high-impact storytelling to inspire sustainable energy, clarity, and metabolic well-being. Coming to us live from Glasgow, Scotland. Let's not wait any longer. Hey, there he is. How are you, Martin?
Good afternoon, good morning, welcome, and hello.
So I kind of feel like I'm in Scotland with you, but it's just a stereotype. It's raining cats and dogs out there here in Virginia. How are things for you?
I'm going to dispel this myth.
Yeah.
It is sunny. It is sunny in Glasgow, and it is beautiful. And for those who are unaware, the word Glasgow means dear green place. And it is a city with more parks in it than any other city in the world.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
Therefore, one of the brilliant things of many things about living in Glasgow is you've got good natural resources on your doorstep for good metabolic well-being.
Yeah. I can't wait to explore the concept of metabolic well-being with you. I think that the way that you portray it in your posts and your writings and your podcast is really amazing. And so let's jump into this. First off, if you could explain to me what you mean by being a metabolic well-being strategist. I think that's such a cool term.
Thank you. Well, I don't know it all. Therefore, I'm constantly trying to research and trying to find angles to educate people to live a more purposeful and a healthier lifestyle.
I love that. I love that. Your story, and I want to get into your story, right? Kind of the broad range was you were in corporate America, high-powered corporate job, and you had a lot of life changes come at you fast, and it totally has you changing gears, careers, focus, and purpose, right?
Well before that P word of 5 letters, pivot, I changed. So yes, you are right. And, I've been blessed to work for corporate organizations, global organizations. I
Yeah.
spent 20 odd years living down under in Australia. But there was something missing. And at the age of 41, I was diagnosed in medical terms with a non-curable cancer, a blood cancer. And unknown to me at that stage, now this was 2012, with blood cancers, you cannot operate because think about
Right.
it logically, it's in your blood.
Right. I kind of feel like, to me, that's one of the most concerning cancers of all, right? And I think you just nailed it, because it doesn't have a focus of tumor or right?
It's like having a stream or even letting the tap flow. You set the tap in your sink and you see the water. That's your blood flowing. And I was diagnosed with stage 4, which there is no stage 5.
Yeah.
There is, but you're not on this planet. And stage 4 meant I did say a few bad words when I was diagnosed. And that also opened a massive pathway, John, to realize that when you do go through trauma, like a cancer diagnosis, you need a team of people around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
I
cannot do this on your own.
Yeah, you shared with me, and I part of this journey, your life story is in a book. It's a chapter in a book on transformation, right? And you shared with me some pages from that recently, and I got to tell you, it was so well written, but it brought me to the depths and the darkness as to where you were at that stage in your life.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you're on that career trajectory, and if you want to call it that type A personality, if you look at
Yeah.
the corporate world that we all sort of seduce into, we go to university, we get a degree, we might get a second degree, might do an MBA or postgraduate, whatever, and then you join the corporate world. And when I say the corporate world, whatever modality or sector that you're in, whether it be law, medicine, corporate, I was involved in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
wow, you're constantly wired. And it's fulfilling and financially rewarding. But it is intoxicating. It overtakes you in many ways if you allow it to. And it can redefine you as you are that X person. And, you can easily see if a person is trained with that company or that company, you can see how they, almost like the IBM type mainframe computer. You work for IBM, you have this way of thinking. You work for Apple, you have that way of thinking. So, you could see transparently, but when you're in the midst of it, you think you are invincible.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're chasing the adrenaline, and I was working, to put it into context, I was working on some really exciting deals. In Australia, I was working, I'll give you an example, protecting the largest public school education authority from the threats on the internet.
Wow.
From schools, right? So you've got to make sure that kids are protected, that, as technology evolved in this sort of, from 2005 onwards kind of stuff, more people had mobile devices, etc.
Right. Right.
Smart kids were downloading things and putting them on the internet, and you've got to be really, really mindful of that. So part of my job was to protect that and protect the integrity of Australians. working behind closed doors in security conversations with the Australian Federal Police to protect the integrity, again, of the Australians, of data that's getting pushed through the internet. So it was kind of exciting.
Yeah.
And some dark clouds, and I'm happy to share a little bit of a story here to bring a bit of joy and a bit of stupidity. I work for a company, one of the companies I work for, and we became quite technical in some ways. We had access to what you call the dark web, which is not open to public, but you can do now. So I'm a runner, and I was looking at one time, I was looking for one of those, and you'll like this, a foam roller, and I couldn't remember the name of it. So I typed in male massage, and just take your mind to where those searches might go.
You wouldn't type that back in again.
So you don't do things on the corporate network, you do them on your private network. But it was fun, don't get me wrong. But at 41, and if you'd like, I'll share a little bit of the story. At 41, I had a goal, and again, I'm living in Australia. To put it into context, I'm living 4 miles north of the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Yeah, beautiful.
Right, a beautiful city. And I had a goal, a personal goal. I had 2 young kids at that time. They were 5 and 3. So in a healthy relationship, and I had a goal of running a marathon at the age of 42, because I thought 42 kilometers, 42 age. Makes kind of sense. I've always been a runner, always been kind of fit. But I found when I was going running, I was kind of tired. But as I mentioned, 2 young kids, you've been there, and a lot of your listeners will probably have been there. When you've got a young family, you're on that treadmill, right?
Right. Your responsibilities at work, at home, all the things, right?
But unfortunately, there were several things that happened that year that really changed my trajectory.
Yeah.
In April of that year, my younger sister, at the age of 37, who had been diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer in 2008, 2009, lost her life at the age of 37 in April. Yeah. Then 6 weeks later, my father was on a 6-foot garden wall around his house, chopping overhanging branches. He overstretched, slipped off the wall, and he had a pair of garden secateurs in his top pockets. And as he fell, the blade pierced him in the heart, and he bled to death. And then 6 months later, my marriage split up. So I'm thinking at that point, what more can the universe throw at me? What's going on here? I'm very little sleep, but I'm trying to run. I'm trying to put that mask on.
Sure.
And then 6 weeks later, in November 2012, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And the way I was diagnosed was I actually thought it was a dental problem. I had a lump under my neck. And being a Scotsman and an Australian, we've generally got big mouths. I thought there was something wrong with my mouth. So I went to the dentist. And here's a call out. Dental practitioners are very smart people.
Yep.
They see and feel the first egress point, i.e. the first point you put food into your mouth. They can tell a hell of a lot about your health, but I don't think we give them enough credit.
Right.
And it was the dentist that said to me, Martin, there's nothing dentally wrong with your mouth, but your body is not responding to the tests that we think it should do. We recommend you go and see a general practitioner and get some tests done. And that's when the proverbial hit the fan, when I realized there is something seriously wrong.
Yeah.
And it opened new vocabulary, not the Anglo-Saxon vocabulary, starting with the 6th letter of the alphabet, but the vocabulary of medical terminology that I was unaware of. PET scans, CT scans, biopsies, bone marrow biopsies, Ultrasounds I kind of knew that, I've had kids. Well, personally, I haven't had kids, but, my
Right.
partner had kids. And I've broken a few bones over the years. But these were pretty serious. And that's when I knew that there was something really seriously wrong. And it kind of occurred to me when I had a biopsy. You don't do biopsies for no reason at all. And that's when it started sinking in. They're looking for something.
Right.
And when the surgeon, a few days later, called me and said, write this down, his first words were, get a notepad, piece of paper and a pen, and write these things down. Follow these instructions, and then I'm going to hang up. And the instructions were, you have to see a doctor in the next 24 hours. You have an appointment with a hematologist, and we believe you have either stage 2 or stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I put the phone down. I'd written everything down, put the pen down, and started crying and went,
Yeah.
oh hell, what am I going to do? And at that point, I actually did feel broken.
Yeah.
I felt I'm going to die. And at 41, I'm looking, how long have I got? Should I, again, things like, should I get my affairs in order? What's the first thing you do? What's the next thing you do?
Right.
And dysregulation is out the window. Everything is thrown at you.
So many different, I'm sure, from so many different avenues. Yep.
And then it was a few days later, I actually went to see a hematologist, and I'd never met a hematologist. I knew about oncology and I knew roughly what a hematologist did, but I never knew why you would go and see a hematologist. And again, there was another sucker punch. The hematologist sat me down and said, we have made a mistake. And I was like, oh, doctors make mistakes.
And it could be better.
He said, you don't have stage 2 or stage 3, you have stage 4. You are critically ill. But I have to give him some credit. It was the next couple of sentences he said to me, before we do any treatment, we recommend that you go and see a psychologist. And that's when the reality kicked in that I needed some help with my mind, my thoughts, my brain process, if that makes sense. And I was also really scared.
Yeah.
But it was when I walked into the psychologist's office for the first time, it was the experience of her wisdom that said, Martin, welcome to new beginnings. You can get through this. You have the tools inside you.
You told me that in a pre-interview, and it to me, such powerful words, and at a time where you desperately needed them.
Words are incredible. And, that helped me particularly through a lot of dark days when I decided that chemotherapy, and you've got to remember, this was 2012. I know a lot more now, but this was 2012. So I decided to go through a regime of chemotherapy. And when the dark days were there, I kept thinking, welcome to new beginnings, welcome to new beginnings.
Yeah.
So navigating it through the storm, so to speak, was, I would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night. So a simple thing for me that worked for me, and it was a tool that was suggested to me, was journaling. And I would have a journal next to my bed. Unfortunately, I went a little bit more extreme as well. I had a thermometer that I would stick in my mouth and take my temperature, thinking that I was going to die because it was too hot and sweaty. Write down, 3:12 in the morning, temperature X. This is how I feel. But it was the power of actually putting a pen in your hand and writing them that helped me hugely get through a lot of the dark days. And fast forward a couple of years, I found that diary, that journal.
Yeah.
And I burnt it. because
It was
cancer no longer serves me. It no
it
longer
was a
is
chapter
part of my
closed, right?
closed firmly, if that makes sense. And because it's no longer here, I no longer feel it and I no longer carry it with me.
So powerful. And so this your new beginnings, right? This started channeling towards your research, and you're looking into nutrition and all the things. Yes?
Hugely. So my first love has always been nutrition. And believe it or not, my first degree is in hotel management with nutrition. Those who might understand this, in the early 70s, there was a British sitcom called Fawlty Towers,
Yeah.
right? After the life of Brian, Fawlty Towers came about. And I was obsessed with when you go to a hotel and you see that little sign that says employees only or private. I was obsessed with what makes hotels work. And what's one of the things when someone goes on holiday, one of the questions that people will ask, how was the weather? How was the food? Right. So I qualified in this degree, and I was interested in, particularly here in Scotland, what do you feed people in rural locations? And when I talk about rural locations, I'm talking about people out on the oil rigs in the North Sea, where food is more than just a fuel, it's a collectiveness of, if you want to call it that biblical aspect of breaking bread together, communicating with each other, conversing, having a bit of banter with each other is so vital for someone's well-being.
Yeah. Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're talking the late 80s, and unless you were a scientist, nutrition was not going to be my pathway.
Right. Right.
And I ended up doing a master's degree in international marketing. And believe it or not, and this is not something I share that often, in the mid-90s, I did work for the biggest soft drinks company in the world.
I heard a rumor.
So that big soft drinks company, I worked for. So I did some work on that. Really interesting to see how on the surface everything looks flashy, but on the back end, a lot of it was tied together with elastic bands and band-aids. But they're the push-pull mentality, push as much product, pull later. And look, we all know that company is still in existence. But my pathway led me to other experiences. And getting back to the aspect about learning nutrition during cancer, I also made an evolutional pathway. I reached out for more help whilst I was going through chemotherapy, because I felt that I was instructed, if that makes sense, to take these chemotherapy drugs. But nobody really taught you about nutrition. So I started looking, what are these drugs doing to me? And I would go and see dietitians and nutritionists in Sydney. And all they would do, John, is pull out what we called in Australia the standard Australian diet. You call it in the US standard American diet. It's a mirror image of each other. And I'm thinking, this is wrong. Yeah. These chemicals that I'm absorbing through chemotherapy are depleting me of not just energy, but my hair had all fallen out. I looked crappy. My energy levels were really low. But you're not helping me. And this was a catalyst for me to go, there's got to be a gap in the market here.
There's got to be more. Yeah.
And there were several aspects that I went down. There's got to be more education for people in their, 30s to 50s, if that makes sense, 30 to 60s. There's also got to be more education for men to open up when they go through critical illness or trauma like this, to be open enough to ask for help, receive help, and know that food can help in an enormous way.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about the takeaways or the fast foods. We're talking about real foods.
Yes. Yep.
Real foods without the, you know, the title of my podcast and forthcoming book is Metabolic Wellbeing Without the BS. But we spoke earlier about the BSO, the bloody seed oils. Without those causing huge inflammation in your gut. But people don't have the time to research this. So I went down a pathway, and for the last 8-10 years, I've been on this journey of evolving, and I've made a crap load of mistakes. I've written some stuff that I probably contradict now as well. But the essence is real food for real health and real thriving. It's really bloody simple.
You know, I think people are so confused. They're hearing things from so many different sources, so many different ways, right? But I think at the bottom line is so many people have tried and failed that they just don't feel like nutrition really can be as powerful as it is. So when you try something that works and that does powerfully transform your health from the inside out, you want to understand why, and you want to teach as many people as possible, right?
Well, in much of the work that I do, I ask the question, and it's really fun when you're doing either workshops or, even up to about 100 people. And you ask the open question, who wants to be a hottie? Because with social media, everyone wants to be Mr. Beautiful or, Miss Beautiful. We all want to be hotties.
Right.
And when I explain how many are healthy on the inside.
I love that.
So, are you really a hottie? Are you also looking after the trifecta of good metabolic health? And that is, you need to learn and relearn how to love your liver, protect your pancreas, and be kind to your kidneys. Now, if you can do those 3 things, and if you think it's too hard, well, let's refocus your brain. It's too hard, but you can spend 20 minutes scrolling through TikTok and Instagram, but you can't spend 2 minutes looking after your liver, pancreas, and kidneys. There's something disconnected in your brain. If you want to rewire your brain, start with your gut.
I love that. I love that. Can you flesh out for me metabolic well-being?
Certainly. So metabolic well-being to me is being present. Easier said than done. Being active. Eating well. Eating real food, as we've discussed. Engaging the superpower, the Scottish superpower of sleep. It's a free gift from the universe. Use it well. And one massive area of well-being, which is huge, and we're doing it here, communication and laughter.
Yeah.
Humor, to me, actually, I think humor falls under the universal title of spiritualism. Because if you can't laugh, you don't feel.
Right.
And over the last few years in particular, there's been a real heavy energy over the last few years.
Yeah.
Well, start laughing. Start looking in the mirror in the morning and have a bit of a laugh at yourself. So the power of self is a really vital part also of well-being. Self-care and self-love is so vital. And I think we expressed this the other day about having a little tool that people can do in the morning is if you're blessed with having a left hand, get up in the morning, go to the bathroom, look in the mirror, take your left hand, give yourself a little pat on the back, and in your best Scottish accent, because we Scots roll the letter R, give yourself a pat on the back and say, I am brilliant. You will vibrate millions of bones and millions of cells in your body thanks to the power of you.
I love the concept because I'm always talking about metabolic health, and you see metabolic health more and more out there. But I love this concept of metabolic well-being because it does go so much further than our physiology, the way we think about it. It does go into our mental and our spiritual and our emotional health. And I think that that's what's so important. You just posted this a couple of days ago, and I was just really struck when we look at these things that you put up there, the self-love. You said in your post under the heading of self-love that stress, shame, and burnout tank your metabolic health. Your nervous system needs compassion to regulate. And that was so powerful for me. It struck me to my core. And then it also, it made me think of the people that I coach and the people that I see every day. Shame and guilt and that's a powerful part of so many people's lives that we don't talk about. And even in this setting.
I couldn't agree more. And, we discussed there a little bit, and I'm always happy to share the fact that over the years, I think I have seen over a dozen psychologists, psychotherapists, psychologists. I've even coached a couple of psychiatrists over the years, but that's the reverse.
Yeah.
So you talk about shame there, and I want to really emphasize a little bit here as well around men's shame, if you want to call it that. Men, one of the best things you can do is actually talk about your vulnerabilities. And I'll give you an example. Well, again, one of the tools that I talk about in the work that I do. Men, when it is your birthday, to show a little bit of vulnerability is if you're in a loving relationship with a partner, tell your partner that for your birthday, you are going to check in with a functional medical practitioner, an oral hygienist, and a health coach, and you would like them to come with you.
Wow.
Imagine the ripple impact it not only for you that you're doing, but your loving partner is going to tell their mates. You're going to create that ripple. And now that is another area of self-love that you can do. We get our car serviced at least once a year. I'm asking you once a year to check in with you and yourself.
Yeah. I think people are more trying to run away from those things and trying to run away from that or hide as opposed to feeling compelled to do it.
Correct. And, again, making reference to that post, which is another key critical aspect, which I think is vitally important, not just on self-love, but sunlight. We spend an awful lot of time in front of devices, screens, right? Please ensure, we're recording this in beautiful sunlight. Well, I know that the weather's kind of crappy for you at the moment, but there is no reason why you cannot get up when you get up in the morning, getting outside and getting your body exposed to good natural light in the morning and at dusk, if that makes sense. Those types of light are incremental for your metabolic well-being.
Powerful. Yep. Truly.
Something like walking to work or walking home from work, or the adage of if you're taking public transport, get off the public transport station before you're your station and walk
Right.
to your car.
Right.
You know, there is no reason. The only person that's stopping you is you.
Yep.
But the sunlight is vital. And unfortunately, we have, especially over the last few years, been caged, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So please get into the sunlight. And it's not a tick box for every single day, but please get into the sunlight. Your nervous system will help you for that. And I mentioned earlier in the podcast about Glasgow being, the dear green place. If you have the capability and you have a garden, the only person stopping you once a week to stand in your garden barefooted during sunrise is you.
And that is the concept of grounding.
Without doubt, yeah, the concept of grounding is extremely vital. It is something that we don't do enough of, and without going too much into the science of it, grounding helps lower the electronic ions in your body. Now, I want to put this into simplistic stages. Cortisol is something that many people will be aware of. Cortisol mimics the way sugar operates through our blood. If we are in being able to ground, we will deionize the cortisol in our body. It will also regulate the way that glucose is being spread throughout our body.
Fascinating.
If we can do that, we are reducing your risks hugely from type 2 diabetes, which a lot of people are aware of, type 3 diabetes, which is Alzheimer's, type 4, which is cancer, and type 5, which is cardiovascular. If those aren't enough wake-up calls for you to start taking control of your metabolic well-being, and that costs you nothing, the only person it costs is your behavioral change.
Right. You've made the segue, so we're going to run with it. As far as one of the topics you wanted to talk about is it's only type 2 diabetes. Can you dive into this attitude or dive into this thought for us?
Of course. So type 2 diabetes, here's an interesting fact. In the late 1700s, there was a doctor who was born in Scotland who's discovered that by reducing carbohydrates, you will reduce your capacity for type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is not genetic. Type 2 diabetes is the behaviors that you have accumulated over many years. So perfect examples are you're putting on a little bit of fat around the gut. Again, you're also putting a little bit of fat around the chest area. And that's not about muscle fat. That's, if I be so kind as to say, the man boobs mentality, right?
Right.
And I'm sorry, women can actually have excess fat around the boobs, and that could be a podcast in itself around breast cancer and duct tissue, etc. That is a huge area. We're not going to go there just now. Going back to type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is over excessive carbohydrates and toxic load on your liver. The only way it's got there is you, not anyone else. It's your responsibility. And it can be reversed with the right tools and right protocols naturally. I would say between 6 and 9 months.
Okay.
And if you have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, or you feel that you're on that pathway, let's put a little bit of an analogy here. For those in the years of procrastination, creating babies, it takes 9 months for a woman to carry a baby. If you give yourself 9 months to make natural changes, you will, using the phrase that I said earlier, you will start your new beginnings.
Wow. Right? I think it's so sad because I think so many people who get diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, the attitude has been that it is a chronic progressive disease and that you're going to have to manage for the rest of your life. And it's more, they're given management procedures, but nobody up until a few years ago has been talking about it this way.
There are some brilliant people talking about it, and if I can, a couple of call outs. In the US, there's some brilliant stuff by Metabolic Mind. Dr. Tro is doing some great stuff there. And for those who want a link on a website, for example, lowcarbdownunder.com.au is a brilliant place to start if you're going, what do I do? There's some podcasts there. There's some recipes there. You can go down a rabbit hole. I'm sorry, guys, when you start on this pathway, you become your own metabolic health coach. But going back to your question about type 2 diabetes, if I had $1 for everyone that says it's type 2 diabetes, it's not that serious, I would be one of the wealthiest people in the UK right now.
Right. It's the worst attitude.
Type 2 diabetes increases your chances of the lifestyle diseases that we just mentioned. And here's a curious thing to throw out there. Why is there not a medication that cures you of type 2 diabetes?
Yeah.
So type 2 diabetes is extremely serious. If we were to put it into an analogy of soccer, instead of being sent off, this is a yellow card. This is a cautionary stop to say, guys,
I love that.
Before you commit the next foul, you've got a space here to take stock, breathe, readjust your behaviors, and you can continue playing that game.
Wow. I love that analogy. So you've already discussed it, but then lead us through, talk to us about now, because I had heard about type 3 diabetes. That's the most common new designation that we've heard for Alzheimer's and dementia, right? Can you lead us through type 3, type 4, and type 5?
Certainly. Now, type 3 diabetes, for those really wanting to learn more about type 3 diabetes, I have to advocate, and I am a Bredesen certified practitioner. There is a brilliant neurosurgeon based in California called Dale Bredesen, who started the Bredesen protocol late 1999, I think it was. Now, it's a 36-step protocol. In that, stipulates around the different types of Alzheimer's. But in layman's terms, Alzheimer's, the majority of Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes, i.e. diabetes of the brain. In order to get to the brain, guess what, guys? It's got to come from the gut. Type 4 diabetes, again, another big call out here to one of the visionaries on type 4 diabetes and metabolic cancer, is the work coming out from Boston by Professor Thomas Seyfried.
Yeah.
Again, for your listeners, Google Thomas Seyfried. He's one of the most engaging, approachable people I've had the pleasure of interviewing and meeting. Type 4 diabetes, which is cancer, is caused by too much glucose in your body. Too much glucose is too much carbohydrates, because carbohydrates break into starch and sugar. That's the hidden sugars that we talk about. You've got to move that mindset of, but I don't take sugar in my tea or coffee.
Right.
The majority of most people's foods are laden with hidden sugars. And type 5 is cardiovascular. So if you look at heart disease, we're going to open up a hornet's nest here. Johnny, ready for this one?
Yep.
We are going to come with the C word. Cholesterol.
Uh-oh, here we go.
So let's break a myth. Cholesterol does not cause heart disease. Full stop. We need cholesterol. This mind, this brain is 80% fat. We need the cholesterol up here. Why does that relate to our heart? Our heart needs cholesterol to help the blood flow in and out. In simple terms, your body needs good, healthy fats. And where do we get those good, healthy fats from? Animal protein. Now, when I say animal protein, I want to stipulate this is animals from the field, but also animals from the sea. When we think animals, we automatically ignore the beauty of the ocean. Now, there was a very famous advert in Australia many years ago to welcome people to Australia. It was put another shrimp on the Barbie. We need good seafood. So start eating good seafood because that has a high degree of omega-3. Now, I don't want to go too deep here. So we need omega-3 in order to activate our brain neurons. Our Western diet is very heavy in what we call omega-6, and that is those BSOs, bloody seed oils. So a key shift in mindset is understanding the 3-to-6 ratio. So again, eating fish, and I also want to be really transparent here. When we think eating fish, and especially globally just now, seafood is extremely expensive. But a simple little hack that you can do. There are 2 brilliant hacks of animal protein that are so cheap and effective. Sardines in spring water and a good egg.
Is this a Scottish recipe?
Nope. Get your cupboard full of good sardines and eggs. Eggs are so versatile. Boil them, make them into an omelette.
Yeah.
An omelette, for example, an omelette and some sardines. And the beautiful thing here, and this is another call out I have, if you've got young kids and they see you making an omelette and putting sardines on the side of it, they will start copying you. Because they will see how that's reflecting in your well-being. So lead by example. Sardines, really effective, a brilliant tool for good gut health, mental health, and brain health.
Wow. That is an amazing hack. I have not heard that yet.
And actually, I'm going to throw a little hack here that you may have heard, again, utilizing the Breston protocol. You're right-handed, aren't you?
Yes.
So am I. I'm going to give you a hack that will take you 4 minutes every day.
Okay.
Start brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand.
Could get bloody.
So, a couple of things will happen right away. You will lean too hard. Sorry, this is my left hand. I'm right-handed. You will lean too hard. So you might start having toothpaste up here. You might also, and this is a great sign to see how healthy you are, you might end up with bloody gums because you're forcing it too hard because you don't realize the strength of your hand. But there is science behind this. you're increasing what you call the telomeres, these little things at the end of your fingers. You're increasing the blood flow to your non-dominant hand. You're also the signaling between your non-dominant hand and the opposite side of your brain. So you're giving yourself great brain health exercises.
Wow. So I'm going to take that one step further. I'm very right hand dominant. However, one of my self-love, one of my things that I enjoy is playing guitar. And so when you play guitar, you've got to use that non-dominant hand on the fretboard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's working the same.
That's
same kind of
working
pathway.
exactly the same. But again, one of the key things, you brush your teeth. And if your kids see you doing that, they'll start doing it. So if you start teaching your kids at a young age, how healthy are they going to be? And again, that ripple impact. We're brushing our teeth, and they'll tell their kids in the school playground, my dad or my mum is an idiot. They brush their teeth with the left hand and make me do it, blah, 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 blah. But wow, what a simple little step, and it takes you 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. That's awesome. So Martin, I want to touch on one last topic. I want you to try to talk about it a little bit, but this is a part of the program that this is the nutrition program that I do. This is a huge part of why our program works so well is the importance of having a health coach, of having a coach. Can you speak to this for us?
Yeah, this is a vital pathway, and it's a pathway I feel that is extremely underdeveloped and undervalued within the health community at times.
Mm-hmm.
A health coach is an accountability partner. Let me break a myth. We don't have the answers because we'll reflect that you have the answers, but we'll keep you accountable. We will ask the questions, and we will try and be neutral. The other key thing about a good health coach, I mentioned about one of the passions I have is if someone is ill, trying to master how to rebuild their immune system. Mm-hmm. And that's where the personalized accountability comes in as well. So if you take someone, for example, say has ulcerated colitis or Crohn's disease, they might need something different to tweak them in order to get them healthy again. Because it doesn't cookie cut. Health coaching isn't cookie cutting. Health coaching is a personalized plan for that individual. Yes, there are some things that are standard, if that makes sense. But you do look at a holistic framework. You look at what job they have, what stresses they have, what nutrition, their relationship with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, one of the tools that I have with my clients, I get them to do a couple of things. Send me a copy of your diary for the last 2 weeks. And send me a photograph of the contents of your fridge.
Yep. That'll tell you a lot.
Now, that tells a lot. But the other great thing with a health coach, and again, I mentioned this before, we can be part of a collaborative team to help people. I'm not a medically trained doctor. I will work with doctors to help that individual. I will work in confidence with psychotherapists, with psychiatrists, with other modalities that are essential. One thing that I'll be honest, one of the things, if people need specific help, then I will pass them on to people who have got that specific knowledge.
Right.
If, for example, I'm pretty okay with men's health stuff. If women are coming to me, for example, with women's health. I'm not a woman. I can give you the facts, but I don't have the feeling.
Yeah.
And that feeling is really important, right? So that is a key area. And the health coach is an accountability partner that can say, that's what I can give you, but this person over here can give you other tools if required.
Right. Yeah. It's a collaborative approach for sure, right?
Without shadow of a doubt. And you know what? There might be some things that we suggest as health coaches that don't work at that time or too extreme. A key one, for example, is trying to educate people or encourage people to do cold showers. People will have this blank, no, but there are ways around it. But understanding their lifestyle can tweak to what will work for that right person.
Yeah.
So one of the tools that, from a generic point of view as well, and accountability, when we talk about accountability, I think we may have mentioned this before, that if you live in a house and you've got kids and say they're teenage years, get a blank sheet of paper, get a fridge magnet, put it on the fridge, and pick a couple of days of the week that you're all going to have a 3-minute cold shower. So you all hold each other accountable. So you could be sitting on a Tuesday evening having dinner. Hopefully it's a beautiful low carb or carnivore meal. And you're going, right, okay, we're up at 6 tomorrow, guys. If we can, we'll go for a little walk. And then we're coming back for a cold shower. It can be a lot of fun. And then you start this, I was in for 4 minutes, I was in for 3. It's not a competition, but if you've got teenagers, it's a big bloody competition.
If you put it in, if you put it in that context, right?
But that brings a bit of fun. And I mentioned one of the pillars of well-being is humor. And the accountability, putting up your area there about accountability partnership, that's why it's vital for a health coach to understand what's happening with that individual. That might not work for that individual because there might be a traveling corporate executive. So we have to look at different ways. And again, here's a big call out for those executives in the business world who jump on airplanes here, there, and everywhere. There is no reason why you cannot take either a grounding sheet with you or your own pillow case and pillow with you when you're traveling.
Okay.
Your sleep is vital. Now, if you're jumping on an airplane from one end of the US, say to the other end, or you're traveling up and down in planes, your nervous system is going to be all over the place. The importance of grounding, of taking good salty water is vital, of sunlight, and regulating your hydration.
Yeah.
Whether it be with electrolytes, and again, I mentioned their salty water. Electrolytes are vital at times if you're in this environment, because you can actually drown yourself with too much water. I know that sounds strange.
Yep.
So an accountability partner, a health coach, can help break down some of these and give an actual plan for that individual.
Yeah.
And a little myth here. You don't have to be able to employ a health coach. If you want to increase your optimal well-being, it's a great way of employing a health coach to go, how do I make those little tweaks? And that's an important gift.
Yeah. Which also creates a great segue to close things up here and talk about the fact that if you can't be with a coach right away, if you don't have a coach, you actually could probably get some great information from an upcoming book that you're writing.
Yes. So this has been in the process for quite a while.
Yeah.
And Thankfully, you've got the nice title up there. So this is a mini pocketbook. There's so much information out there now. You do a Google search, you go onto a search engine. You want to buy a book, it can be overwhelming.
Right.
This is a little pocketbook that you could probably read in about 20 minutes. And it's on 5 pathways. And the 5 pathways I take like the palm of your hand. It's the power of nutrition, why we sleep, why we need movement/exercise, why we need self-love. And if you make it into a fist, it's holding it together with your thumb. It's remembering your ABC. Always be curious. This book gives some insights, gives some reflective space, and hopefully creates more questions than answers.
Wow. Yeah. No, I can't wait for this thing to come out. We've been talking about it, and I think it's gonna, like you said, I had a client of mine hold up all the books that I told her to get, and they're all this thick, and they're all like really, they're really deep and really heady and all the things. But people, we really need some simplicity to a lot of this stuff.
Look, I have referenced some icons in this space, if you want to call it, people who have written some brilliant books. You mentioned people like Jason Fung, for example, Rob Lifkin, Ben Bickman, Brain Energy by Chris Palmer, George Eady's book, fabulous books. But they can be a little bit overwhelming when you get something that's 200-300 pages, and these people are brilliant. They are fantastic.
Yeah.
But here's something that you can take, put it in your pocket, read it on your journey to work. As I said, there's spaces in it for your self-reflection, if that's something that you want to do. But there's also places where you go, oh, wait a minute, I want to find, if we take movement and exercise, there's so many different movements and exercises people find joy in, whether it's karate, running, yoga. Find what floats your boat, so to speak. Is vital. Sleep, non-negotiable. I'm sorry, but you and I were brought up in the 80s where sleep was for the weak, so to speak.
Right. I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Okay. Now, 2 major icons in the global world in that time were Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. Both died of Alzheimer's. But would brag that they could survive on 4 or 5 hours sleep a night.
Right.
Nope, sorry, not going to work. And a little bit around the self-care also is, and in this podcast where you spoke about the language, the psychologist spoke to me in the power of words. That is vital as well about your own self-care. If you start saying, I'm a failure, what do you think that does to your whole energy level?
Right.
And, the bit where we haven't all got our crap together, to put it mildly. We're all work in progress, right? We all cock up. We all make mistakes. We all sort of go, oh my God, what am I doing? And you know what? That's okay. Stop trying to be perfect. All right? But if you can start doing these small things about looking after, and you've mentioned about the fact one of the passions I have is educating people to be their own CEO, their chief energy officer. You are the chief energy officer of your greatest asset, but also of 30 trillion cells in your gut.
Yeah.
Let's not even think about the amount of neurons in your brain, 100 billion neurons, the amount of activity it takes for you to smile. Be proud of the asset you have. And it's not a depreciating asset, it's an appreciating asset.
Wow. Martin, I'm going to let you drop the mic right there. That was so super powerful. I really appreciate it. Just thank you so much for your time, your patience. I will let everybody know this is take two. We did this last week and had technical difficulties, but you know what? Everything works out for a reason. I think we have an even more powerful show today than we had in the can from last week. You said some things that you sprung hottie on me, for crying out loud. You've been holding on to that. That was a surprise. So I just want to, again, I want to thank you for your time. Also, I want to make people aware. One of the way that I found you was I started seeing your podcast, and surprise, surprise, the title of the podcast is Metabolic Wellbeing Without the BS. So please check out Martin's podcast. It's available for download anywhere where you're listening to podcasts. He's already had some amazing guests. I'm going to tap you for some introductions, if that's okay, because there's some of those people that I would love to have on the show. Again, we've got to keep spreading the word. We've got to keep preaching from the rooftops that the metabolic well-being is possible, and it is so important to you being able to live your life possible. Right?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be on this, John. And it's been an honor and a privilege to spend some time with you, my friend.
Well, thank you. I hope that we do this on a regular basis. I truly love your story. You inspire me in so many different ways. And I love everything that you post. Look Martin up on all social media. His posts are absolutely amazing. They're very powerful as far as putting these complicated concepts into very simplistic ways that you can put it in your daily life. So yeah, Martin, I hope that we formed a friendship here, and Scotland's on my bucket list, not for nothing.
Right, you'll be more than welcome to come to this country.
I think it would be so much fun, but even more fun to have you show me.
Be perfect, sir. Perfect.
All right, I'm going to put you backstage and close the show. I'll see you in a second. Hang on. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us on the Life Possible podcast again. As I said, look Martin up. He's got such amazing stuff to share with you that you're going to find powerful in many ways. I love the concept of metabolic well-being, because that really does encompass body, mind, and spirit. And that's the complete package. That's what we're after. So, as always, stay tuned. We're going to have some more amazing guests coming up. We've got some neat things in the pipeline for you. And as always, keep reaching for your life possible.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Life Possible podcast, where we unlock the power of metabolic health to fuel your best life. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and download the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if this message resonated with you, share it to someone who needs to hear it. Let's spread the power of life possible together. For more inspiration, insights, and exclusive content, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thanks for tuning in. Keep striving, keep thriving, and remember, your best life is within reach.